rapid industrialisation all over the world, we're finding a lot of industry are looking at solutions to environment, solutions to technology that reduces the cost, reduces the power, and provides green solutions for products and services around the world. Right now with me is John O'Brien. Now John's no newcomer to the energy sector and definitely no newcomer to green technology solutions. Welcome, John.
Hi, how are you?
Now, before we talk about green tech and clean technology for the people watching, you've had a lot of experience both starting in the energy sector, looking at clean water and those kind of solutions?
Yes, absolutely. So I've worked for a long time in energy and utilities, and a lot of that time was for a big energy company looking at new investment opportunities and where the growth of the energy market was, but also other areas such as waste and water, and that's now translated into my current role.
So from the early days working in the oil and gas industry, you've migrated through looking at the clean water solutions. From then, now you've looked at the wider industry for clean energy and technology.
Yep.
And you've focused on China. Now, why is that?
China's a fascinating place, and it's always great to go there. The combination of China and environment is something that many people would go, well, that doesn't fit. You know, China just pollutes. But actually, the growth of the environment solutions industry in China is absolutely massive because there's so much environmental problems with the air quality and the water quality and land quality. That solution providers are just being, growing rapidly as industry is forced to start cleaning up their operations.
Talking about people or companies cleaning up their operations, and indeed governments cleaning up their operations as well, it seems that there's been a move, and you can correct me here, that we're looking at solutions like carbon pricing and we're looking at environmental controls, but the whole clean tech industry looking at these companies seems to be encouraging, and it's the exact reverse, rather than beating with the rod. They're going, these are the kind of opportunities that not only governments and companies are participating in, but also investors are looking at for sustainable investment. Yeah,
absolutely. And I mean, a lot of the solutions being provided, actually, they end up with the industry and the customer being more efficient and more productive and having less risk liabilities on environment. So yes, there is government support through regulation or through subsidy, but actually a lot of the solutions are actually being adopted and growing because they just make sense. The whole point of clean tech is effectively to do itself out of a term. It should just be, it's just common sense. So you end up with these solutions that help industry survive and help them grow as well. So everyone's a winner in that one.
All right, so now there's the theory and the concept, but you've taken that to a very practical level.
Yep.
You've created the China Cleantech Index.
Yes.
Now, as I understand, you're looking at, in China particularly, about 150 companies who are manufacturers, water companies, energy producers. Can you tell us a little bit about those companies and about that index?
Yeah, certainly. So we started publishing it, I think, 2012, and have been tracking it ever since. And it's we look at it, all the environment categories. So there's the renewable energies, there's solar and wind and hydro. But then there's all the water technology companies and the waste technology companies and environmental services and some others. And what we do is basically, we first of all, companies have to qualify into it. They have to have a majority of their revenue from one of these areas. And then we've tracked them, but we also analyse, why is solar going up and down and why is wind going up and down. And the whole investment thesis of China environment is very strong, but then you actually have to understand what's happening in the solar market and why. So, if you invested into solar in 2010, you lost a lot of money. If you invested in 2013, you made a fortune. And you've got to understand the supply chains and why that's happening. So we've basically done that analysis to help investors understand where the market opportunities are to make the best returns from this growth market.
Because you're looking at such a broad range of industrial sectors, this would also be a very good indicator for the industries themselves within those sectors. and not just an investment portfolio. So there's actually, we could talk about two things now. So we've got the whole solar industry and the energy industry.
Yep.
And we have manufacturing. Of course, China is a very big manufacturer.
Absolutely.
And supplier to the world for all these products and services. And of course, supplier of the technology at some point. So how do you see, in terms of the investment profile for these companies? Now, most of those companies in that index report are publicly traded companies.
Yeah, no, they're all publicly traded. They're all have primary operations within China, and they're listed on various markets. So most are actually listed on Chinese markets, so Shenzhen, Shanghai, Hong Kong, but there's quite a few listed in New York and London and even one in Australia. So the investment thesis, there's a number of ways that you can look at it. So you can compare a particular solar company with the mass of solar companies or a particular water company. But then you can also assess the different subsectors. So solar has been very volatile. It's been up and down over the last few years, whereas subsectors such as water and waste, which have a very solid growth path and very strong sort of city government regulation to help that growth, just have a less volatile and so have steadier returns. So by looking at it in different ways, you can actually work out for your own risk profile what's going to be best for you.
So in terms of the index, I noticed that you've got 5 or 6 different indexes that you map.
Yep.
in a chart.
Yes.
Can you explain what those are?
So there's a couple of charts. One is we track the main index against some global benchmarks. So there's a couple of other. There's the new energy index and the Cleantech index, global Cleantech index. So we track it against those to see whether is China outperforming global cleantech markets, and certainly at the moment it is. And then we also track it against the Shanghai Composite and the MSCI World, and that's it's certainly outperforming the MSCI, and the Shanghai Composite is a volatile index to say the least. So in January 2015, it certainly outperformed, but over the previous 12 months, it underperformed the overall Shanghai. So that's one where we benchmark it against different global benchmarks. And then we also, with the different sub-indices, so I think we have 8 different sub-indices, we mark them against each other, and you can see over 5 years what's happened to the various sub-indices and why, and you can sort of dig back into what happened in that month to make solar jump or solar crash.
And that's all charted, and that's available in a report too.
Yep.
And we'll get to that in a second, how you can get that report. But you also produce this in English but Chinese as well.
Yes, yeah, we do indeed. Yeah.
Now, do you have an objective for the Chinese version? Well, we're covering Chinese companies, obviously, or you're covering them, obviously.
So, I mean, there's two investment areas that are potentially interested in this market. So, global investors, clearly, there's a theme there, but also the Chinese market is very active, and to be honest, the investors in China understand the potential of environment industries more than anybody else. So, I was in Beijing last week, and the smog in Beijing is terrible. So if you're living in Beijing, you know that a company that has an environmental solution that will clean air out of factories is going to have a huge growth potential.
Much closer to the coal.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Chinese investors actually understand the potential of the upside a lot more than international investors in some way. So we're working with partners where potentially there will be investable products both on the Chinese mainland and potentially internationally as well.
Well, that's going to be exciting to look forward to. Now, you've got a couple of major partners in this. You've got the cleantechinvestor.com.
Yes, yeah. So out of London, they publish all sorts of investment data on cleantech, and they publish it in Europe.
And topcapital.cn?
Yeah, and Top Capital is a finance magazine in Beijing, and it's actually connected with the China Venture Capital Association, who we work very closely with, and hopefully that's where the fund products will come through. So.
All right, now, so investors, or if you're interested in the cleantech industry at large, of course you can go to sinocleantech.com.
That's it, yep.
And that's reports available in English and Chinese. You can also register to receive that.
Yep.
By clicking on a receive the email button.
Yep.
And that comes out every month.
Does indeed.
And finally, if you're on Twitter, you could follow the hashtag Cleantech.
Yep.
Do you have any other suggestions for following on
well,
Twitter?
ABN Newswire, of course.
We do publish that
Yeah.
on your behalf, which we find very exciting every month, because we always see new entrants to the market every month.
That's right. And also there's a on the sinocleantech.com there's a Twitter feed there. You can just click on that. Yeah.
So I invite investors, or if you're interested in the cleantech industry, to visit sinocleantech.com and register for the newsletter. Thank you very much, John.
Excellent. Nice talking to you.